I think we somehow forgot along the way, and maybe that's what President William Ruto is trying to bring back into the minds of Kenyans. I think it's a well-deserved holiday.
We'll visit. We'll revisit.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Fred.
Yeah.
I will start with a statement.
Yes.
And it says in management, failure to plan, you also plan to fail.
Yes.
So there is actually, planning is very important.
Yeah.
What we are doing in terms of planting tree is a good thing. Nobody is actually refuting it. But we need a plan. Today we have done a small statistics among the people who are here. There are many in the studio.
Yes.
And in terms of who is going to plant tree, we were lucky to have someone who is saying, I may, not actually saying, I will go.
Yes.
So he is saying, I may, so telling you that even the other one may actually happen. So in this studio, almost everybody is not going to plant trees. So what we are saying, planting tree is a good thing. And we are seeing what is happening in terms of the climate and all that thing. But planning is key.
Yes.
As George has said, there are so many things that used to happen. You could see, like there was a lot of work during Moi's time.
Yes.
That gabions were being done and many other things. Actually, they were doing so many things, but you see, forgetting to do these things.
Yes.
And we start now calling holidays on Thursdays, and we are going on Friday. You have not told people, where are you going to go and plant trees?
Yes.
So we are just here in our compounds. There is no place to plant trees. So we have not been given direction on what is it and where we are going to plant.
Yes.
So I am saying this is a good thing, but the way it is being implemented, I don't really agree that is the way it is supposed to be. In the sense that many people, in fact, in the evening, I want to see the statistics. How many people really? Yes. So you will find that this is actually a government thing, and it will be done by maybe the senior and some few Kenyans.
George was telling us that his colleagues, and I use that colleagues in the cabinet and in the corporate heads have gone out to plant trees.
Yes.
They were assigned the areas.
Exactly.
But what happens to the rest of the people?
Actually, there is, within the office of the president, there is a unit that is actually in charge of climate change. There's a specific office within the executive office of the president that is in charge on issues of environment and climate change. And they actually have a countrywide structure which is actually ward-based. So in all the 1,000...
It's ward-based.
It's ward-based. That's why I was telling you that some of my people back home are also part of the executive committees, and they're calling it environmental.
Have they been planting trees?
They haven't been doing that. That's
actually, why have they been constituted?
These committees were actually created sometime last year across the whole country, and they were being coordinated by members of parliament, who are then creating those constituency-based environmental committees, which I know some of them, particularly for my constituencies back home. And actually, it has been pending because they've been waiting for all this time for the execution of that program, because the president had already committed that is part of one of those things that he's very passionate about. So I think this is probably this is the time now they're beginning to roll out the program. So
basically what you're saying without saying it is that they were waiting for money.
They were waiting for funding, because you see, you need to buy the seedlings and transport them to constituencies.
They were waiting for the national government to buy seedlings and take it down.
Exactly.
You know, George, this thing is something which is very critical and important.
Yes.
And if there is anything that the government needs to put some money in, actually, in fact, that's why you are saying, like the Azimio people were actually saying, call this a national disaster.
Yes.
Why? It is because when you do this, like what is happening here, there is a lot of funding which will come from so many other sources. But what we are saying is important things. I find that in this country, we are actually putting a lot of emphasis on the things which are not even as important as this. And therefore, we are saying that you cannot tell us that on Thursdays when you've gotten money. I think for a whole year, in fact, you see, like the president, in terms of his manifestos, he talked about how many trees we want to plant.
Close to around 15 billion trees.
So that's why we are saying, even in terms of budgeting, this is one thing that we really need to see it there. And there is a process we were told that be planting these kind of trees.
Yes.
But you see that exercise, it was just said, and even right now, if you ask me for a whole year and something, how many trees have you planted?
Yes.
It is actually, you may tell me I have planted nothing. It is only that you go and look for a mango tree. Why? You are looking for a mango tree because you want to eat mangoes.
Yes.
But your drive is not because of climate.
Yes.
And this is something that we are saying, the idea is good.
Yes.
But the implementers are failing us a big deal.
Because if George is saying these implementers are even, they are ward-based.
I can even confirm to you, not just ward-based, but in those particular wards, they've narrowed down to particularly schools and church institutions where the planting of trees will occur. And you can imagine in most wards, you have an average of about 10 schools. So my assumption is that if then we are working with 1,450 wards, then we are talking of around 14,500 schools. You can imagine planting 100 or so trees. So they probably will do 3 to almost 5 million trees in a day. That is what they're planning as a department. And I'm telling you, it's actually a presidential initiative that is within the office, the executive office of the president. But we hope that what has been planned is what will be achieved on the ground, because that is usually what the difference is. Because planting trees is not a new phenomenon, like we agreed, it has been there for years. And through, I think back then, President Mo used to do it through the agricultural 4K1 club. There used to be those
the 4K1
clubs that were there back then, and then we used to do the building of gabions and planting of trees.
We planted a lot of trees.
A lot of trees those particular days. So I guess that's what the president is, maybe the timing also is what has prompted him to be able to do that, because of the flooding situation, which has a connection to the climate issues of environment and climate change. And I guess the issue of planting trees became very viable. And I truly know, because that structure has been there since last year.
You see, Kenyans and I guess the entire world, it's a monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. If the CSS and the corporate heads are planting trees today, this should be a monthly thing.
Sure.
We should be seeing the CSS setting aside a day and the corporate heads going to plant tree. The more we see them doing it, the more people are going to plant tree. As you mentioned, Moi's time. I mean, almost every other day on TV, you would see Moi planting trees. You would see him, engage in the building of gabions. Yes. And there was a lot of planting of trees as a result of that.
Actually, you are saying the right thing. And I can tell you, there are some good things that the government need to go back to.
Yes.
I can tell you one government, actually I will talk about a county government, which was very serious. It had its own flaws, but there is something good that they were doing. You know, many people, when Sonko became the governor of Nairobi, Sonko had very many bad things.
Yes.
He could go and he could box the iron sheet and many other things. Yeah. And he could sleep on the road and lift his legs up and all those things. But there is one thing that Sonko did consistently during his time. It is actually cleaning the city. And you could find that they are saying, we are going to clean this estate this month, and then we have a program, we are going to another estate. And you can remember, many people actually started now seeing what is happening, and the city started to become clean. You see, when you look at some few things, as you are saying, when we start planting trees, that there is a program, and it is actually something which is being even put in the news, in the newspapers, and people are actually seeing, people are actually having a plan. Right now, there is actually the idea, which is there, which is a good thing. But where is the plan? Because actually, if you are doing a project, there are phases in terms of the project. There is what you are saying, phase 1, we will do 1, 2, 3. They would be saying, look, we are actually on phase 1, which is finances mobilization. And then after that, we are going to have a program that every quarter or every month, this is what we'll be doing.
Yes.
You know, like now.
Right now, we don't know where we are.
We don't. And
as far as planting trees, we don't know how many trees have been planted. At what point will we know that we have hit the 15 billion tree mark?
The current structure that I'm familiar with is that we probably might be having 14,500 locations, my random estimate, of where trees are supposed to be planted. And if they're planting 100 or 200 trees within such locations, it's easy to do 3 or 4 million trees in a day countrywide.
Yes.
But you know that also comes with the need for funding and other factors, because the logistics of first of all, planting these trees in the nursery so that the seedlings are out there and then they're able to transport it into the different locations countrywide.
Yes.
It's not a very cheap process. And maybe that's the reason why it has taken long for this process to happen, because the plans have been on for almost, even from the last financial year. But a lot of the people on the ground were saying there was a challenge with the funding that was coming from the national government. Tree planting can be an everyday event, but it comes with very serious financial implications. I guess.
But we have institutions that have been growing trees. I know of government institutions.
Kenya Forest Service.
Yeah, Kenya Forest Service. You go, you buy trees.
Correct.
I mean, so we are not waiting for trees to be. They already have them. It's just a matter of transporting them.
You know.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, so that's not an excuse.
No,
that's not
maybe
an
as
excuse.
leaders of opposition, you might not see what we are seeing.
Can I say, this thing, George, we are saying,
Yeah.
if there is anything which is important in this country, is actually to be able to address the climate challenges that we are having.
Yes.
I have seen the president has actually been going to summits, even here in Kenya, about climate. If this is actually one of the things that the world is talking about, even in terms of the carbon credits, they have talked much about the carbon credits and all those kind of things. So this is an important subject that we are talking about. If there can't be a plan which is actually being implemented in phases and Kenyans are able to see, then what we are saying is there is a big challenge in terms of the communication. And I think one of the challenge we have with the government is in terms of how they communicate what they are doing. Because you see, like now, and I will give you a very good example of what has happened in terms of the statement of the president. It is a good statement, but it is untimely. Why is it that I am saying it is untimely? It is because we are reacting on crisis. It is not supposed to be like that. It is supposed to be a continuous thing. So we cannot be reacting when things have happened. That is when we are doing this. Like now, on Monday, parents are supposed to take children to school.
Yes.
Do you know, because of the disruptions which we had, because of what we are talking about, something which we are saying, if in terms of we did some things, maybe we would not be where we are. But you see, on Monday, children are going to be taken to school. Do you know how many parents don't have even the fare for the children to be taken to school? And you have actually disrupted a Friday, which is supposed to be a working day. So it means the banks will not be working. Quite a number of people will not be working. There are some of the people who are taking children to school. What they do is they go to maybe to some few places, the companies which are open, and they go and look for jobs. It is a daily kind of a pay that is going. And that's why we are saying there is a lot of money which will not be circulating.
You were saying around 8 billion shillings.
Yes. That money, and you know what we are saying at the end of the day, how many parents will not actually earn today? And on Monday, they are supposed actually to be taking the children or giving the pocket money. Do you know, actually, sometimes we assume things. There are so many parents who actually, to get that 100 to give to their daughters or to their sons, as pocket money. That 100 is what they are earning tomorrow or today. It is not money which is there all the time. So many people are struggling. And that's why we are saying some of the declaration, especially when schools are opening on Monday and you are actually blocking Friday and you are putting it a holiday without a proper plan, I think this is where I do not agree with the government. We really need to look at the stakeholders. What is happening with the stakeholders before we make declaration? Because for me, maybe for you or even for George, maybe he can manage to manage his life, actually even with all this disruption. But I can tell you, there are so many people who will be disrupted by this kind of a statement.
George, economically.
Yes.
This, I know employees, I know people love holidays.
Yes.
But holidays are very expensive.
Yes.
Aren't they?
They're very expensive because they come with internal demands depending with where you are at a family level, at a corporate level. Because also when you work in institutions that produce on daily basis, for example, manufacturing plants, any day you afford to even shut for a day, there's an implication in terms of output,
very big.
and also in terms of sales and what the government also generates from such enterprises. And so they come with extreme expenses, but some of them you have to gauge and see the worthiness of such holidays. And I truly think if you look at it objectively, this issue of environment, the challenges that we've had on the issues of climate change and environment degradation, it makes sense maybe the symbolism of this particular holiday might not be to continue to have such holidays every day, but it's probably to remind Kenyans on the need to pay attention to the issue of environment conservation. And probably that's what that could probably, the wisdom of the president, could have been the reason as to why he gave us this sudden holiday.
To lay emphasis on
the need for environment conservation. Because that is not supposed to be a holiday event. Environment conservation is actually a continuous process. That's why we have institutions that actually have a duty to do that on a daily basis. I'm telling you, there's an official executive office within, a gazetted office within the office of the president that is actually supposed to be conducting this on a daily basis with a countrywide structure. And so, and it has been in existence for a while since the president came in, I think in 2022, just slightly after he formed his cabinet. So early last year, he formed such a team, but it had taken long to take off. I believe probably now they're in the right position to do that, and maybe they can factor it into the next financial year in terms of budgeting, because Fred, environment and environment management is actually a devolved function. It's something that's supposed to be executed by county governments.
But can we trust the counties to do that, really?
You see,
if you look at the way the counties have operated until now, can we entrust that with the counties?
You see, Fred, we live on hope. We live on hope because we already, in our constitution, we actually, the constitution that I voted for it, 2010.
Yes.
I queued at Hospital Hill polling station in Westlands constituency, and I voted for this constitution. And part of it is that it devolves some functions to the counties. So their counties are actually legally mandated to execute that. As to whether or not they will implement these programs is what we Kenyans and every other institution that is supposed to hold our leaders into account, we are supposed to do. But that function is a fully devolved function, and is actually supposed to. It doesn't need a presidential directive. It's supposed to be executed by the CEC of the Environment and.
So what we're saying, it is the counties that are failing. To do what they are supposed to do.
Exactly, and that is the part of what we've been having, because we've been saying every day about the challenges of devolution. There are things that were supposed to be executed a very long time ago. You understand? But it's sad that 10 years after, we're almost into 12 years since we first had county governments, there are some functions that haven't been fully activated within the counties. That's why you go to counties where you had an allegation in Kirinyaga in the previous term when Anwar Guru was serving her first term. They were saying some of the, including the CECs, also see the governor on TV. He's a celebrity too. The CCs are ministers and supposed to be engaging the governor every day. And my assumption would be that there are cabinet meetings for Pastor David.
Yes.
So when you hear that there are some CCs, they also see the governor on TV. It just tells you that we are still... The governor is a celebrity to his own CECs. And this is the challenge that we've had even in many other county governments, particularly in Northeastern, David, you know the allegations of some of those governors, but many of them live in South
in Nairobi.
And they're running county governments in Mandera, you understand?
It's just like the Somalian president living in Kenya while taking...
No, he lives in Kenya.
Lives in Kenya, and he rules Somalia.
He only shows up there on weekdays. He shows there on weekdays between Wednesday and Thursday. These are the challenges that we're going to have to face.
I don't know about your county, because...
let me tell you, my county is Murang'a County. But I can tell you, this problem is actually with most of the county. And I would not actually even I would say it the way it is. We have poor leadership. I know George may not want to hear that, but we are not seeing, in terms of leadership. Actually, there is a sphere, and you look at the critical circle. In terms of managing the county, you look at what are some of the few things that you can do which are in line. Like my county is actually moving with the vision of the Kenya Kwanza. And one of the things, their main agenda is actually what the president is talking about, planting trees. Do you know in every organization, Fred, when the CEO comes at the beginning of the year and he says, we want to grow our revenue to 20 billion or 20 million this year.
Yes.
It is not for him to come and give you now the strategies.
Yes.
It is actually for the people. For
to
him,
come up.
yes, he is a visionary leader. So he is actually giving the vision. The mission in terms of the implementation is your work. So he only comes, he can come once and he says, the president can actually say we want to plant
15 billion trees.
When he says that, all the people who are working under him, they should have a plan which is actually going towards doing what the president has said. And you know, I think one of the things that needs to be passed, even in terms of the constitution, when we are changing, you see, like the way, like today, and George can attest to this, in terms of the issue of carbon credit, countries are different.
Yes.
Because of what you have done in ensuring that the climate is becoming better, you are changing. Now, in terms of the monies, the devolution, if the money is going to be given to the county, there should be another some few yardsticks, whereby we are saying this is actually what the government is looking at. Where are you in terms of planting the trees? And we can scale and measure. And we see some of the important things. If actually we reward them, what will happen is that many of the governors will wake up, because some will get 0, others will get 1 billion more. Why? It is because they are driving the agenda of this government. And this government is actually a government for all. It doesn't matter whether you voted from Azimio or what. When climate changes, and
it affects everybody.
It affects everybody.
Yeah, it affects
so
everybody.
We should actually be moving in this direction, whereby we are able to sit down and say, there is some money, which maybe this money is not actually in the normal, the normal planning and all that. Like consolidated funds. Maybe.
There's money set aside to reward those who are planting trees.
Correct.
So that counties that are doing well actually benefit from doing that.
And talking of which, Fred, and just to pick up where David has left on carbon credits, you know, Kakamega County, we have the second largest tropical forest in Eastern Central Africa after the Congo forest. It's the largest and the most attractive when it comes to carbon credits. And even much worse is that it's in my constituency of Malava, where we actually, you know, Malava and Shinyalo, we host the entire Kakamega forest. It's a very cold, one of these fine days when I invite you to my place, it's a very cold place. You think you're somewhere in Mount Kenya there. So we have all of a sudden received visitors who've come to adopt our forests. And you know, and I've always told them here and in many other shows, Fred, that some of the players in this government, their interest in this business of forestry and planting trees,
it's carbon
credits with carbon credits and nothing else, because there's some significant amount of money that are being paid in dollars that is being earned off some of these people's what you call community land and community
so people land. They have adopted it as theirs.
To my regular relatives in our village, they think this is an NGO, you know, but you know somebody's there for business.
The guy is earning a lot of money. I can assure you it
won't be long because we are going to be in there at some point.
Now you see, if we do what David is saying, that will go a long way in improving our environment, improving the way we are taking care of our environment. And if the government is earning earning from what you call carbon credit, it should be going back to sustain this forest.
That is the thing.
It should not be going into people's pockets. And talking about people's pockets, if you look at the dailies today, basically this is something that has come up. In the next financial year, the government is going to spend 1.1 billion shillings in taking care of the presidential advisors. 1.1 billion shillings. There's been a lot of hue and cry about that, but the $1 million question, I'm not against people earning big monies. The question is, are they bringing value? If you look at the Council of Economic Advisors led by David Ndii, which was supposed to, panel beat our economy back to its senses, we are not where we were. First, let me hear from you, David. What do you think of first the bill itself and the value add?
Let me tell you, and this is the serious problem that we have in government and actually in budgeting.
Yes.
Do you know one of the components, and George will attest to this, that is in our budget, we budget wastage.
True.
We budget wastage.
Wastage. And the other time we were here, do you know how much money we budget wastage even for Kenya Pipeline? From Mombasa to Nairobi. The money that we lose is in terms of billions. It is even budgeted.
It's budgeted as wastage. We are going to
we are going to have all these losses. And nobody is actually looking forward to see how to mitigate these losses. Now, the challenge is...
So you're budgeting for wastage even before you waste it?
Yes. And that parameter, someone will tell you and justify that the amount of fuel we have lost is actually this a percentage. And they say we are doing well because we have not gone to 5%. At least as long as we are on 4%, we are okay. So they are not actually worried as long as it is within what they have budgeted. So where that fuel goes, nobody wants to know because nobody can challenge you.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it is budgeted. Even in terms of the formula. Do you know, even every liter that you put in your vehicle, there is a percentage of wastage that is there.
That is budgeted in that.
You are paying for that. You are paying for that. So what we are saying is, we have no problem in terms of that 1 billion or something. That is there. But you have said one thing. What value are we getting? Because we have seen, like sometimes, in terms of the economies, we have seen free fall. Whereby we are asking ourselves, where our economic expert in this thing? It is a free fall. Some of the advices, you are actually even asking, who advised the president on this kind of a thing? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense. So what we are saying is that we have so many units in that, the government, in terms of the president's office, but the question is, right now, we need to see more value. We need, you see like now, for example, the other time you asked us, and you are talking about the currency. Now that it has moved from 160, and I think George was actually trying to tell you, there is actually something that we call the world. You know, the world forces, which sometimes brings things, but you know, you are actually asking, these guys, they must have done a lot. But let me tell you, some of the things is not them who are doing. It is actually the world that is actually going toward that direction. You remember, there is a time that people, Kenyan, were actually asking, how comes the world global prices for crude oil has gone down? But when you look at Kenya price for fuel, it is still high. And people are asking, how comes Tanzania is able to bring down the prices? So the question that we are saying is, some of the people who are there, and that is the challenge that I have with them, is that right now, we are not seeing the value. George has actually the statistics he can give you about the 16 units. And you can actually look at some units, you find even it is duplication. Let George continue from there.
This president was campaigning in 2022. He campaigned on a hustler narrative where he completely decimated the government that was there at that particular time. And one of the things they were alluding to was wastage of public funds and creation of unimportant seats that people were angling for. And you remember he was saying that all these dynasties want our seats. And they want to create these offices of prime minister, I don't know whose office. And you know, and it sold because he was able to gain votes in areas where traditionally this president was never going to get votes. In Western, he got 600,000 votes. That was quite a historic vote.
Yeah.
You know, nobody, not even President Uhuru Kenyatta, got such votes.
Sure.
Time, not even the late President Kibaki as well. It was a historic vote because there are people who actually bought that. That sometimes when I hear, and I've said this many times, never mind, I never supported this president, is that indeed there are people back home who actually queued and voted for this president because they believe in what he said and what he sold at that particular time. And all of those things was how he was going to cut government so that he can then invest the money in creating jobs for the young people. That's why his narrative was that his first agenda is jobs, jobs, jobs. But you see, it's very unfortunate that when the president now came in and the first thing he did as a president was create a bloated cabinet and then created these big state departments. Because remember,
but those are jobs.
There are jobs he created, but just look at them. We can create a limited number of jobs, Fred. But you know, it has to have a purpose. We're working with a government that is struggling with the development budget. You just had the president say that KRA collects 2.1 trillion shillings, but 1.1 is spent on
the current expenditure.
That shows that there is need for us to cut wastage. And I've been singing about the state corporations. I think now you've seen the report on how they're going to downsize the state corporations.
Yeah, correct.
From 288 state corporations to 188. Those are almost 100 state corporations that I've been telling you all along because I seen this report by my friend Mugo Kibati. I've been seeing him for a long time. But President Uhuru Kenyatta, when he came in the other time, he gave him, I think it was a task force they were able to, they were supposed to audit which institutions are no longer relevant in the reality, in the realm of devolution. Now they gave a report which was on the president's desk for all those years, but President Kenyatta just didn't execute it. 100 state corporations that have no value to Kenyans at this particular time would cut down almost 600 billion shillings. That can go to industrialization because that's where the jobs will come from. I've said that this president can build a small plant. If this president wanted to build at least a factory in every constituency, in every constituency, those are 290 constituencies, even just for $1 billion shillings, it's just 29 billion shillings. That would totally change the whole job creation program. But he has to cut down wastage, and unfortunately up until today, you can see even by his conduct, he's still in courts and battling the issue of CAS because he believes that we still need more CSS. It's very unfortunate, and Kenyans are on their own. I hope the opposition can pick this up. And these are some of the low-hanging fruits that you can.
Are you saying these advisors they've not brought any value?
Because you already have other existing institutions that are funded and have the mandate.
We have the economic transformation that is headed by Augustine Cheriot. We have the Council of Economic Advisors by David Lee. We have Women Rights Advisors by a lady from your area, Harriet Chigai. We have the National Security Advisor, Monica Juma. Financial Affairs and Budget Policy, Henry Rotich. Council of Climate Change Advisor, Ali Mohammed.
I'll quickly point out 3 of them. The first one is the Economic Advisors. You know, Fred, we have a whole department for planning of State Department.
Correct.
Headed by former IBC's ICT Director, James Mohati, from my home county of Kakamega, Pastor David. You know, he's the PS for that. And in the State Department, there's a unit there called the Vision 2030 Board.
Correct.
That already has a master plan of how each and every county can be productive in this country. You actually don't need to go anywhere else. If you just go to the work that was done by the Vision 2030 Board, then you don't need Kinandi now because it had an idea of what the country needs to transform its economy. And I've told you because I've been to that department. It has people who've even gone to Harvard, people with MBAs from Harvard. And Stanford are in that Department of Economic Planning. The president does not need to create any new unit. These guys now, what's happening within the State Department, because most of their roles have been usurped by these most of these are political rivalries that the president is giving, is what is happening even in our counties. And I told you at some point that in my own home county, there are people in the office of the governor, they just show up to read newspapers, go on Facebook, and then go back home at 5 because they have no roles. Their roles are being executed by characters on the street. So it's very unfortunate that this president has refused to listen to the sadly because he ran on a narrative that was supposed to cut down government costs. The constitution gives him the mandate. This president does not need to seek any other person's go ahead.
But at least advisors. Every president
let me tell you,
has advisors.
Advisors are okay, but what we are saying is, don't get advisors in duplications. Because you see, at the end of the day, you don't have to keep on every small thing, like 16 units.
Yes.
What is it that you are talking about? You know, as we are saying, they are experts.
Yes.
Actually, you see, like even in every ministry, they are experts. The PS and all these guys, they are very instrumental.
Yes.
And that's why we are saying the president is having a bit of a problem, because you see, like now, he gets the PS, he is going down to CAS.
Yes.
You know, when you look at that, at the end of the day, there is a lot of deprecation. And that's where we are having a problem. And I'll give you a very good example so that you see what is happening and why we are saying this is a wastage. In the month of February, a young man who has also the masters and all these kind of things, he works in a county. I won't mention the county for that integrity. That young man came to my office. And he told me, he is actually in finance, and he told me, look here, in the county, I only work 2 days. 2 days in a week.
2 days in a week.
2 days in a week.
And he's in accounts.
In accounts, in finance. And he is paid 100% of his salary. And if there are allowances on those 2 days he is working on, he is paid. Now, he came and he told me, I am in finance. I can be doing some few things for you on these other 4 days. So there is actually, we usually work from Monday to Saturday.
Yes.
So he has 4 days to spare. So these 4 days, he can be able to make money for himself, and yet he is in the payroll of the government. What we are saying, there is a lot of deprecation even in terms of the county. What these people have done, they have arranged themselves, like the way we are here, 3 of us. Let's say, assume we are all in finance.
Yes.
So what we have said, George, don't be coming on Monday.
Yes.
Go and do your things. Fred, don't come on Tuesday and Wednesday. Go and do your things. And then Matthew, Thursday to Friday, don't come. We will cover it for you. Then the question that we asked, what was the need for having Fred, George, and David in that office? If things are working and they are moving, then it tells you there is a lot of wastage in terms of people are being paid for not working.
Fred, there's a lot of joyriders in the county governments. I wish the media and journalists could just take a look.
Joyriders.
Joyriders in the county governments. People are just showing up at workplace to earn salaries and they do and go do other businesses. And that's why I've told you, if I'm ever to get a position to be able to manage any county government, the first order of business would be to cut that government into a small government and send people to the wards where the real work is. Because the business of poverty eradication actually happens at the ward level and not in those executive offices, because we're wasting a lot of money, we're wasting a lot of value. I don't know if you saw Senator Sifuna dealing with some of the rogue characters of the county government here in the Nairobi county government, where he was even highlighting the issue of a mismatch of roles, where we have somebody with a theology degree managing a fire department, and they were about to contest him until he brought the evidence on the table and he couldn't believe it. And that is the case across the county. This president has a cardinal duty as a public servant to serve all the Kenyans equally. But also while doing so, he has to do it efficiently in a government that is at least respects the value of the money that he collects in form of taxes. Fred, when you look at the kind of people that pay taxes, some of them, majority of them, are people on the low end, somebody that works to just get 100, 200 shillings. Then he goes to buy that 100 shillings, buy a half a kilo of fluff for 50 shillings. And they charge him what you call VAT, and government tax it. And for it to be taken and then to go back pay fat cuts like Nandi for doing the roles that are already have been being implemented by other people, it's very unfortunate, and we do not even have to wait for 2027 to correct issues like those.
Correct.
Well, it's very unfortunate.
It is, and that is why we are saying, Fred, the issue that we have is bloated workforce.
Yes, we have a bloated workforce within the government.
Within the government, within the county, that is what we are seeing. We are not getting value. So when we are talking about the national government, we are also talking about the other governments. And I have given you a very good example. That is how you don't get value. But the expenditure is high. People are being paid for work not done. It is immoral.
It is immoral. Linturi, Your friend was under a lot of fire.
He's an extreme fire, but for a good reason. You know, Fred, I've always said if there's one thing that for any human being you can't play with, it is his food. You know, we can do without any other thing. In school, but back then they used to give us uniforms. Just take 2 pairs, Fred, and you use your 2 pairs all year. So you can't really, you don't really need much when it comes to clothing and other things. But I think for you to eat and be healthy is something that is basic for every Kenyan. And anybody who plays with any of the factors that lead you to a good food secure country is a threat to our nation. Now allegations have been raised, they still remain allegations because we are in a constitutional state where you are innocent until proven guilty, and he has a right to exhaust not just even the parliamentary, he can still go to court and go all the way to the Supreme Court, and that is for him to pursue. But we hope that the reality that we had people, corrupt cartels that were able to penetrate the whole subsidy program and ended up dishing out sand to some of my people back home. You know, Kakamega County is one of the most affected counties on the issue of fake fertilizer. I have my own relatives that I know that collected fertilizer from our board, because we also have a board just next to our home. We have the main board in Kakamega town, but then we have another mini board in my ward. So most of the farmers around the place where I come from actually did go to town. We went to collect fertilizer from the small board over there. And indeed we had cases of where people were able to collect sand soil. You can imagine what it means to your soil. That is almost committing like murder, because there are people who depend on that. There are people who actually eat that to survive and then are able to sell that to earn a living. For anybody that tried to sabotage that is actually an enemy of the state. And I think the president and the institutions of government, because we've seen a bunch of people that have been arrested and taken to court, and I hope it's not just showbiz, and if there are individual people that work in these institutions and had a duty to ensure that you know, Fred, is not an allegation that fake fertilizer was found in the street.
Correct.
People walked into a public institution and
bought a government institution and came out with
it. Yes. You know, it's the one thing if we arrest a truck somewhere loaded with some fake stuff, we can question the people and handle them differently. But you know, anybody who does supply chain management, I think David understands this, is that when you receive a commodity, you have to verify it's the actual commodity.
Correct. Yes.
Ordered, and by the time it's stored and you sign the delivery note, it means you're sure of what you have in store. So for there to be an error to an extent that such numbers over. They say 100,000 bags or so of fake fertilizer, and that is what has been verified. That actually was bought from the NCPB stores. It's very tragic, and those who are capable at that level, many of them have been handed into courts, but seriously in Turi also, because running a ministry is not a joke, especially when you're running a big institution. Fred, you can imagine when you're managing 5,000 people. It's not easy. There could be some corrupt guy down there. You might, as a minister, given a go-ahead that you have a subsidy program and we need to supply the fertilizers to our farmers, which is a very good and noble thing. But down there, you know, sometimes it's not very hard.
Are you saying he should not be held liable for this?
I am saying,
because you're saying, as you're giving an example of an institution that has 5,000 people, there's obviously a manager, the structures, there's always there's obviously a person who was responsible for ensuring that what we are receiving is actually what we ordered for.
You know, Fred, you need to understand the context of this case. KEBS, which has a duty to verify commodities that are being procured by government, was handed over a sample. They measured the sample and it was okay. And they okayed certain companies to be able to supply that particular product. You see, at that point, KEBS has done its bit. It is now sure that this company is dealing with a product that is good for use by the public. But you see, the storekeepers and the other people now who manage the logistics then have a cardinal duty to ensure that quality control is sustained all the way. And when you're dealing with high volumes of commodities for 10, 15 million bags, it's not something that you can verify bag to bag. Sometimes then you have corrupt people that down there that can be able to penetrate that supply chain system and be able to bring in what you call fair fertilizer. So I'm not saying Linturi is clean. That's why we have legal processes. That's why it's being investigated, and there's a select panel that is to look at his responsibility and see where he's wrong. So
but it's mostly a political.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
It's so political. In fact, I remember the chair had actually said this is a political process.
It is. And you see, the thing is, Fred,
Yes.
and I like one word that George has said, and it is a bad state to be in. One, we don't trust this government. We have seen quite a number of things that it is doing, and we hope, and that is the word that George also used, we hope there is not going to be any interference. Whereby cases come, we want just to sanitize someone, and then after that, we just, brighten the Kenyans people, and we move forward.
Yes.
This is not an issue. If this government is serious, this is one issue that they need to take it very seriously.
Yes.
Because I can tell you, there is a family right now. In fact, I had to close my eyes. I don't want to hear even my ears. When someone starts saying it is my wife, who is actually bringing all these issues. And I was asking a question, how powerful is this lady? How powerful is this lady that actually she is able to change a whole department and a whole country?
Yes.
Then she must be very powerful.
Yes.
One, I don't agree with the government. And I think the government, the problem we have is response. The speed that the government moves with. Who has the best intelligence in this Kenya?
It's the government.
It is the government. The time people started saying that we are being given fake fertilizer, the time people started saying that we are being given fake fertilizer, what did they say? They started saying there is no fake fertilizer.
Yeah.
If we go to the news, you will hear the same people saying that there is no fake fertilizer.
Yes.
Yet they knew, and they had the intelligence that people were actually you remember even people are actually saying, the Azimio people are the ones who actually made me actually laugh.
Yes.
They said, unatupatia fertilizer, lakini umekuja mawe na pupu ya puda. Unaweka hapo ndani. And it was like a laughing matter, but it was a very serious thing.
Yes.
Alan Nyamu, he went even to the Senate. To actually tell them, did you see that clip whereby people are just doing funny things?
Yes.
They are going, it is like in a quarry.
Yes.
And they are doing funny things, and it is being packaged as a fertilizer. Let me ask, didn't the government know about these things? Let me say, if there is anything that we demand, justice, is we want to see justice in this matter. If the government is going to take it lightly, Kenyan people will never forget. It is an issue whereby the government need to walk the talk. If for example, this Linturi was not involved, let us see the other departments which were involved, because the government knows who supplied this. And these people who supplied, they must tell us the truth. If it means for them to go all the way in making sure they pay for this, let them pay, and let them pay dearly.
Well said. And these are not matters that we can joke about, because the UN has already said that there is a possibility that we might get a drought after these floods. And so when somebody messes around with the production of food, it's actually sabotage. It's similar to sedition, because what you're doing is you're risking the lives of over 50 million people.
Sure.
And that should not be taken lightly. And so we demand justice to be done. We want to see people going to jail because of this. We want to see properties of these individuals who think they can supply fake fertilizers and get away with it, attached and taken over by the government and used to buy now good fertilizer to compensate those who are given the bad fertilizer. So it's one of those things that we cannot take lightly, and we pray that sense is going to dominate in this country. We say we are 80% Christian, and so we should be seeing at least 80% of good values in this country, but we are not. So obviously that simply means there is something off. So you do what you're supposed to do. Let us do what we are supposed to do to get this country where it's supposed to go. Don't forget, in a couple of minutes or so, actually hours, Daughters of the Kingdom will be coming here to talk about things to do with the kingdom. And what you'll notice about the kingdom of God, you don't hear this kind of stuff. Everything is straight. Do have yourself a lovely morning. And please, if you can, plant a tree. Have a good day.